Hello. Today I decided to make a commentary on a ship that I've had for a while. It's of course the American Flint, the T7 Premium that you currently can only get by reaching rank 1 twice in the ranked league. In this game on the top tier, as you honestly, I feel like this is the most accurate representation of this ship because honestly you are mostly top tier at T7. That's just the way it goes right now. The matchmaking is completely skewed. It completely screws over the poor T5s, but if you're T7, I feel like it's the best tier to grind anything right now. If you have a premium that's T7, you're probably laughing because you have constant favorable matchmaking all the time. When I played my Belfast recently, I think I played like 30 games of Belfast, and I'm pretty sure only 2 or 3 games were against T9s. All the other ones I was pretty much top tier. Anyway, the Flint itself. I wanted to make my Belfast commentary before I made this one, since I wanted to get an idea of what the Belfast was like before I went over to this one. And the Flint is basically, it's very much like the Atlanta, except of course 2 turrets have been stripped off from the sides, both sides. So instead of having 8 of the turrets, it has 6, which is roughly, well, it's 1 turret per broadside taken off. That's how much it impacts your average damage or your overall damage output. And the torpedoes, well, they're just straight up better. They are 10 knots slower than the Atlanta torpedoes, but they are 9.2 kilometers of range. And the Atlanta torpedoes, of course, have only 4.5 kilometers of range, so you're literally giving up 10 knots of speed for more than twice the range, which is, of course, ridiculous. And here is, of course, the most powerful tool of them all, it's the smoke. The Flint, of course, has American smoke. You see, I have the smoke out there, but I'm gliding into the cap using the smoke. I'm going at a quarter speed, so I can keep moving forward and let the smoke bloom in front of me and keep undetected. You see, when I zoom out now, you see it has bloomed into the cap, so I can move into the cap and start capturing the point. And that's, of course, is a massive advantage. The fact that this ship has American DD smokes, or well, just American smokes in general. For those that aren't aware, there's different durations in smokes in this game. American smokes last the longest, and Russian and Japanese smokes last the equal amount of time, but they are significantly reduced compared to American ones. So having American smokes is always a great thing. They bloom the longest time and they have the longest duration, and they're just overall the best. So of course, having these on a squishy ship like, well, the Flint / Atlanta is of course fantastic, because one of the major weaknesses of the Atlanta is that it's highly situational. You often have trouble. You have a lot of, the strengths of the ship are that you have a lot of firepower, but the weakness of the Atlanta is of course being able to bring that firepower to bear. And being able to bring that firepower to bear can be very hard, because you have to, it's situational, because you have to find these perfect land masses you can hide behind and you can shoot the enemy from there. And if the enemy flanks you and is able to shoot at you, then you have to flee, because you can't take straight up fights. You basically have to sit behind the islands and spam HE and so forth. The Atlanta is amazingly situational. Well, the Flint, on the other hand, is not situational at all, because the Flint no longer needs these perfect land masses, this perfect cover, these perfect situations to make the ship work, because the Flint has access to fantastic smokes. So basically removing the radar and adding the smoke removes the situational thing from the ship and just makes it an overall fantastic ship. It negates the weakness of closing the distance, and then once you have closed the distance, actually surviving at a closer distance. Those are the 2 huge issues of the Atlanta. How do you get close enough to be able to deal damage, and once you start dealing damage, how do you stay alive? Well, most of the time, good Atlanta players, they abuse the terrain a lot, they hide behind rocks, they park behind mountains, and they spam HE using the arcs over the mountains. Or alternatively, they might division up with a DD, like I've probably posted a commentary or a vid of stream highlight or 2 where I'm playing with the Sims buddy or something, and then the Sims smokes us up, and then I sit in the smoke with the Atlanta, and it feels amazingly powerful to play the Atlanta then. And well, that's basically what the Flint is, except you don't need a division buddy anymore, you can do it yourself. It's pretty much identical to the Atlanta in every other way, except for those torpedoes and the 1 gun removal. I mean, the AA, the Atlanta has slightly better long-range AA, of course, because the guns are multi-purpose, meaning they work as AA guns. So if you remove 2 turrets, then of course that will negatively affect the AA as well. But on the other hand, the Flint actually has 40mm ball force anti-air guns, which the Atlanta doesn't. I don't know why. but that means the mid-range and the short-range anti-air on the Flint is actually significantly better than the Atlanta's. Although the Atlanta, of course, has, on the flip side, significantly better long-range AA. But still, it's weird that even this is a trade-off and not just a straight-up advantage for the Atlanta as one would expect. But it's a trade-off, which is strange. Same thing with the Torpedoes, like you would expect it to be a trade-off, but it's actually just better on the Flint. Like, yes, you trade off 10 knots of speed, but the reload is the same, the amount of torpedoes is the same, damage is the same, they still deal 16.6k damage each, and like the arcs on them are the same, so it's not you can't really call it a trade-off when you gain in every single parameter, but the only thing you lose is 10 knots. Hell, you even gain concealment on the torps. Atlanta torps are spotted at 1.3 kilometers, Flint torps are spotted at 1.1. So Flint torps are even very hard to dodge as well. So it's like, what's supposed to be the downside? Just like the Atlanta, the Flint has never-ending defensive AAs, should you use to use them. I'm asking our Fuso why he's sitting very far back, as you can see. That's honestly something that frustrates me quite a bit with the Fuso. It's that I feel like it's the single most misused ship in the game. People, because it has so much range, people try to snipe with it. And that's such a huge issue, because if people learn that instead of trying to play it at 20, they try to play it at 15, it would soar up in the scoreboards and it would soar up in the stats, and like it would go from, like right now it's one of the worst performing T6s, but I feel if they would nerf the range and force people to come closer in the chip, it would like skyrocket up in the ranks, simply because people would be forced to use it at closer range and they would just demolish everything. But sadly, that's just the way of the ship. Moving on though, I am, having played the Flint, I think I played like, what, 9 or 10 games in this ship, and I'm like averaging 88, 89k damage, which is honestly, for T7 Cruiser, is ridiculously high. And especially when you compare it to my Atlanta stats, my Atlanta average damage is 55,000 damage, and I have played well over 100 games in it. I'm very comfortable in the Atlanta. Based on VTR, I'm in like top 10 EU. I haven't checked it in a while, but I tend to hover around top 10 EU in the Atlanta. And I think I have 70 plus something win rate in it. And in general, I consider myself very good at handling the Atlanta. But in this ship, I go from Atlanta's 55,000 average damage to this ship where I'm doing like 88, approaching 90k. Probably once I get used to the ship, I can easily break over 90k average damage. And I feel like that's such a massive, massive, massive power difference. And in fact, if I hadn't saved this commentary for after I made my Belfast commentary, I would have said that this is the most overpowered T7 cruiser by far. Like, that would have been, in my opinion, this is the most overpowered T7 cruiser. But simply because the Belfast is being released, I can now say that, well, the Flint, at least the Flint isn't that powerful. At least it doesn't have radar. I mean, you can get Hydro on it as well. And I've tried both seem really potent. I took this because one of the reasons I took the commentary as well was because this isn't technically that optimal because there's no carriers here, and of course Flint does amazingly against carriers, just like the Atlanta does. You just murder planes, so planes could have bolstered my XP a ton, and of course if you're a carrier, you absolutely hate the Flint because the Flint just smokes up and then there's this smoke cloud, you don't even know where he is. Suddenly you just notice that you've lost all your squads of planes because you happen to fly past the spot where the Flint is hiding, and whoopsie-daisy, all your planes are gone. And that's of course insanely frustrating. But that's pretty much what it's like playing carrier against this ship. With the Atlanta, you kinda, well, you start losing planes and then you see the Atlanta on the mini-map, or well, from your point of view, and you can pull your planes back in a panic and like try to salvage something. But with the Flint, it's kind of like, well, I'm losing planes, I don't know where to pull them, let's try to pull them back, whoops, I'm still within range, and blam, you've lost all your squads. It's kind of ridiculous. But of course you can also use Hydra and make yourself pretty invulnerable in the smoke, which is also a pretty good tactic. Now, of course, as you can see here, I'm basically playing this like a DD, because once again, many of the fears that you have with the Atlanta, like you're afraid to push in somewhere, you're afraid, because what if I get jumped, what if I get spotted and jumped and I'm in a vulnerable position? That's of course a very common fear in the Atlanta, like you have to be extremely careful in your movement, because if you get spotted, you're dead. But that fear is completely removed from Flint simply because of the smoke. The smoke is simply, on a squishy ship like the Atlanta, the smoke is simply such a much stronger tool than the radar ever can be. The radar is extremely situational, and it's hard to get the most use out of it, whereas the smoke is pretty much always fantastically useful. And there's of course the fact that the smoke has a significantly larger or longer duration, and the smoke in general synergizes much better with your ship. Okay, York ate one of the torps. As I said, these torps are very hard to dodge because you spot them at 1.1 k. He got hit, he got massive damage, he got flooding. Well, then I just pop him. Oh, another guy got hit. He did those, like this York, even though he got hit one of the torps, he probably didn't spot the guys, the torps on the far right, because once again, as I said, they are hard to dodge, or well, hard to spot to begin with. So that's of course a huge advantage. Like you can't do that in an Atlanta. The torps don't have the range to do it. You can only use them at point blank. The Atlanta torps are kind of like YOLO torps, whereas the Flint torps once again are consistently useful. And that's kind of the story between the Flint and the Atlanta. The consistent thing of one ship has all these situational tools that are sometimes useful, whereas the other one has these consistently useful tools that are consistently useful. That's the story between the Atlanta and the Flint. On the Atlanta you have short range but speedy torps that are useful if you happen to get within point blank range of something you can actually torp. And you have radar if you happen to get into a situation where you can actually use it. Whereas on the Flint you have smoke, which is pretty much always useful, and you have long range torps, which are pretty much always useful. So it's this constant situation of feeling like, well honestly the Atlanta, the more you play Flint, the less you appreciate the Atlanta, which is a bit of a shame. I have made a commentary on it, I can even link it below, so you understand my opinion on it. For example, this kind of situation, like in Atlanta you'd have to wiggle behind islands and try to find some good angle you can shoot at this ship and so forth. But the Flint, there's no thinking, no, like, I don't know, the ship was supposed to be for higher skilled captains or something, but the ship is so much easier to play than the Atlanta. It's not even funny how much easier the ship is to play. You smoke up and you start shooting. That's it. That's how you play it. Like, I mean, of course you can get torped in the smoke, but that's something any smoking ship has to deal with. And it's so easy to just wreck so many different types of ships with the tools you have available for yourself. Poor Ignizer now. I got 2 fires on him, so he had to repair. He will dodge my torps, hooray for him. But like, what is he gonna do in this situation? What are his options? That's another fire. At this point I could probably switch to AP in fact, because as I've shown before, AP is very strong against broadsiding battleships in this ship, especially German ones where you can get a lot of AP damage in the superstructure, but whatever, I might as well just burn him to death. Really with no issues, he's gonna burn to death. He's got 2 fires he can't repair, so I don't really need to shoot him anymore. That's his torps, but they're not gonna reach. And he's burned to death. And that's like how easy it was to deal with the T7 battleship in this ship. You don't need any sort of preparation, any sort of tactical positioning, anything, which is why I find it so strange that this is some sort of reward that's given out to like the rank 1 guys who reach rank 1, like this is supposed to be some sort of high skilled ship or something, but this ship is so much easier to play than the Atlanta, so much more forgiving. You have the smoke as your oh shit button at any time. It's the more you play the ship, the more frustrating the Atlanta gets. And honestly, the worst part is the Belfast has actually ruined... Oh, this guy. That's the guy I asked. That's the Fuso I asked at the start to move up. He's still at full HP. And he's actually asking people to spot for him. It's honestly, I hate battleships like that. I really hate them. But anyway... the sad thing is, like, the Flint has ruined the Atlanta for me, but the Belfast has pretty much ruined them both for me. Like, Flint felt ridiculously powerful until I got the Belfast, and now it's like, holy shit, the power creep at T7. I honestly hope they never make the Flint available. If anything, I think they should just delete the ship, and they should give a short duration smoke. For example, the kind of smoke that the Belfast has, they should give that to the Atlanta instead, or something similar, because this ship really feels like This ship feels like it has all the tools that the Atlanta needed to succeed, but for some reason the Atlanta never got them. The Atlanta always got the spare tools that don't really compete. I don't really have any issues fighting off this Budyonny. I just kite him and spam my HE. Just so much damage, and of course I smoke up just in case that the New York decides to shoot me. And that's the kind of thing, you see, that's the kind of escapes you have. You can't do that thing in the Atlanta. And the smoke just, it makes up for all the weaknesses you have on the ship. Flint is so OP, he says. Well, of course it is. I mean, you can't argue. I don't understand why anyone will. I mean, looking at the win rate, people with Flints have something like 67 or something average. Like, the win rate is absolutely absurd, and it's for a good reason. But I still don't think the ship compares to the Belfast, but I mean, it's still ridiculously overpowered in itself. And I don't really understand the logic about giving basically a super boosted Atlanta as a reward, or easier to play super boosted Atlanta as a reward for reaching basically #1 in the the only competitive league that you have in the game. I don't really understand the thought process behind this, but of course it's a premium ship, so you can see I make ridiculous amounts of credits. My damage was 162k, which wasn't... I sell from cap to cap to cap, capping everything. It's not like I was even going for some massive damage here. It's just... this ship is just pretty faithful, honestly. I'm pretty disappointed in just how easy this ship is to play. Moving on. Module-wise, not really much to talk about. Consumable-wise, I use premium everything, but if you are... well, you shouldn't honestly strap for cash if you have Flint. But there are some options here. So you can go defensive AA, which is of course a massive strength because of your great AA, or you can go hydroacoustic surge. You have infinite defensive AAs, just like the Atlanta has, or you can go for 4 hydroacoustic surges. Honestly, this is very much up to you, which one you prefer. I like the defensive AA because I haven't had much issues with torps and smoke, but both are honestly just as viable. If you division with DDs, then Hydra is probably better. If you division with carriers, then defensive AA is probably better. Like, there's a lot of flexibility here. If you go for defensive, I mean, Hydra, it's not like you're going to be weak against planes anyways. Like, the AA is fantastic regardless. Of course, upgrade-wise, main armaments, you want to buff up those guns. AA guns mod, simply because aiming system simply isn't worth it on this guy, since you just spam so many shells anyways. You want to make use of that ridiculous AA. Propulsion mod, because that's the thing I found myself losing the most on this, really. And finally, of course, rudder shift, to get that rudder shift down to 6.7 seconds, of course. And captain perks wise, basic firing training, since your guns are such small caliber that you benefit from it. Last stand, because, well, there's no point going expert marksman, because your turrets already turn so quickly, it's kind of wasted. Torpedo reload, well, you're not really a torque boat, and honestly getting this for the 4 torque tubes you have is kind of a waste. And firing reduction is useless, and incoming fire is also garbage, because, well, you're supposed to be in a smoke the entire time. And here there's some options: Superintendent or Vigilance. If you like using Hydro, then maybe don't get Superintendent first. If you like using defensive AA, get Vigilance first, of course. And then, of course, Advanced Firing Training for the range and the AA, and Concealment Expert for the stealth to be able to sneak in. Anyway, that was my Flint commentary. I hope you guys enjoyed it.